Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Spayery. Today, we're going to be breaking down 5 winners and 5 losers on the Steelers roster, and a couple of Steelers coaches actually included on today's list that I consider winners and losers after the events of the 2025 NFL Draft and the players that the Steelers took. Before we get into the content today, get us started down there in the comments section. But let me know, who is the biggest Steelers winner post-NFL draft here? Which player is probably the happiest on the Steelers roster based on the events of the NFL draft this year for the black and gold? All right, so first up here, guys, let's discuss the winners. I got 5 winners and 5 losers on today's show. So without further ado, let's get into our first winner here, which is somebody that's not even on the Steelers roster yet. And I say yet because it's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback. I think that, based on what we saw from the Steelers, there's a lot of people speculating, they might draft a quarterback, they might draft one really, really early, and they might draft one to start because they might be done pursuing Aaron Rodgers, but they did the exact opposite. They didn't draft a quarterback until round 6 with Will Howard, and they passed on Shadur Sanders not once, not twice, but 3 times, twice in the middle rounds when he was making his infamous fall in the NFL draft this year. And they even took a 4th edge rusher, kind of like a backup level player before they addressed the quarterback position. So the Steelers' behavior in the NFL draft, and I always say, guys, don't listen to what a team tells you, listen to what they do. Actions speak louder than words. And the actions that the Pittsburgh Steelers made in the NFL draft said a lot about how they feel about the Rodgers situation. And it's very obvious to me right now, guys, that the Steelers feel extremely confident that Aaron Rodgers is going to sign with them soon. Jeremy Fowler from ESPN has reported that the team feels like, or that many people around the league believe that Rodgers has given the Steelers an assurance that he will sign with them eventually this offseason. And some of the words we heard from Art Rooney and, of course, head coach Mike Tomlin this weekend certainly seem to point in that direction. This is what Rooney had to say over the NFL draft weekend. He says, "We're still kind of getting the same signals we've been getting recently that he does want to come here. I do think we may get word soon, obviously, with things starting to crank up here with the offseason program, etc. If he's coming, we would like to get him here soon for some of that." Then Mike Tomlin said this on the Rich Eisen show during day 3 of the NFL draft. He said, "We've had good conversations. We feel good about our plan at the position. Certainly, it's yet to be revealed at this point, and I understand the angst not only in the media, but this community that supports us," talking about the Steelers fans there. "We're excited about what potentially awaits us there." Then Ian Rappaport from NFL Network said this on the Pat McAfee show today. "We are confident that Rodgers is coming," I believe is how they phrased it. They think Rodgers is coming. "I think Rodgers is going to be a member of the Steelers organization. Everyone in the world, I think, thinks that." Then Jerry Dulac said this today about how the situation is going in Pittsburgh. "The Steelers firmly believe that he will sign with them. It's less likely that he won't be their quarterback." So when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, guys, it certainly seems like he's going to sign with the Steelers. And if I'm Rodgers and I saw what the Steelers just did in their draft and just did in free agency and the trade for DK Metcalf, I like what the Pittsburgh Steelers did this offseason. And obviously with all the other quarterback opportunities off the table, the Steelers one right now is definitely the best case scenario for him in terms of trying to have success and to be a starting quarterback for an NFL team. You can take a look at what he has to work with here if he signs on with the Pittsburgh Steelers for 2025. And I think that this is very workable. You got a lot of early round offensive line talent that the Steelers are hoping is going to take a big step forward next year to protect Aaron Rodgers. And then you got guys like DK Metcalf, George Pickens. You got a really good running back duo in Kaleb Johnson and Jaylen Warren to take some of the load off of Aaron Rodgers so that he doesn't have to pass the ball as much as he did with the New York Jets that had no run game last year. And then he's got a really good receiving tight end as well in Pat Freiermuth that he's reportedly already been in contact with throughout the free agency process. Plus, he's already worked out with guys like DK Metcalf at UCLA this offseason. So I think that this is a really good opportunity for Rodgers, and especially given the fact that the Steelers didn't bring in and didn't draft an early round quarterback, I think that makes it even more sweeter for Aaron Rodgers and even more tantalizing for him to sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers this week. So predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Aaron Rodgers make a decision this week? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section. Personally, I think he's going to sign sometime this week, but what do you guys think? It's going to be the pinned comment on today's show, so YouTube's going to throw you an ad break here in just a couple of seconds. When that happens, take advantage of that time by giving me a yes or a no down there in the comments. Another post-draft winner here for the Pittsburgh Steelers is George Pickens, the wide receiver. And, even during draft weekend, we were getting whispers that the Steelers were willing to listen to offers for a trade for George Pickens. And not only did they not do that, not only is Pickens still on the roster after draft weekend, something that, by the way, I predicted, even though, a lot of people were saying the Steelers were trying to trade him, they didn't draft a wide receiver either. So he's definitely locked in as this team's number 2 wide receiver alongside DK Metcalf. And I am so excited to see what this duo is going to do this year. The Crash Out brothers, the Twin Towers, whatever you guys want to say. These two guys are great downfield threats, and they're really good after the catch as well. And, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, and I got these two big targets for me to throw my inside fades to throw my go balls to throw those digs to, I am really, really excited about those 2 wide receivers. Now, let's hope that contract talks with George Pickens don't spiral this offseason. I still think it's more than possible that George goes to the organization and says, listen, I'm on my last year. If you want me to play for you this year, you have to pay me $30 million per season. And there's just no way in hell the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be doing that. They might do it if he has a really special season this year and they can't afford to, separate DK Metcalf and George Pickens. But I do think that this is a potential situation that could get a little bit ugly down the road. But right now, it certainly seems like he's locked in to be this team's number 2 receiver. Another wide receiver that I thought was a post-draft winner was Roman Wilson. That's another guy that benefits from the Steelers not drafting a wide receiver. Now, they did bring in a couple of UDFAs at the position, but those are UDFAs, right? They're not really going to be true contenders, at least not, heading into the offseason program. We'll have to see what Roman can do, but Roman's going to have an opportunity to prove himself this offseason. And I think that the fact that they didn't draft a wide receiver on day 3 of the NFL draft shows that they have hope and confidence in Roman moving forward. They spent the 3rd-round draft pick on him last year. They obviously still think he's very talented. And from a skill set perspective, my pro comp for Roman Wilson was actually Randall Cobb, and that skill set really worked well with a guy like Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. So I think that Roman Wilson could really work, especially if Aaron Rodgers is here as this team's quarterback. And hopefully, after spending a season dealing with injuries and apparently not picking up the offense in the correct way, hopefully now that he's had a full offseason to work with his guys and get ready for his pretty much pseudo rookie season, hopefully he can come out and have a great first full season in the NFL. Then we get to Isaac Seumalo, the guard, and the reason why I have him as a winner is because I think he has a higher chance of remaining with the Pittsburgh Steelers past this season. Last year, James Daniels was was on a contract year, and they brought in Mason McCormick, a mid-round draft pick, to eventually replace him. I thought there was a chance that the Steelers could bring in an offensive lineman this year in the draft to potentially do the same with Seumalo, but they didn't do that. They did bring in an offensive lineman from Minnesota Duluth, Aiden Williams out of Minnesota Duluth as a UDFA, but I'm not sure if the plan is necessarily for him to start in 2026. I think that because they didn't really get an heir apparent to that position, I do think the chances are greater that Seumalo gets locked up long-term to be the starting left guard of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then the final winner here is Arthur Smith, who, obviously is the offensive coordinator. And I think last year he didn't really get to play the style of offense he wanted to play. Najee Harris wasn't really built to be an outside zone type of rusher. He didn't really have the adequate vision. And then obviously Russell Wilson has to run kind of his style of offense in order to be successful. And, it just wasn't really Arthur Smith's thing. But this year, you got a guy like Aaron Rodgers probably coming in who is very accustomed to playing under center, play action style. In fact, he had some of his most successful years playing under Matt LaFleur there in Green Bay. And then you got a guy in Kaleb Johnson who's a similar size to Najee Harris, but he's got way better vision and I think even more explosive downfield speed. Last year, Next Gen Stats clocked him at over 22 miles per hour multiple times on big-time runs with the Iowa Hawkeyes. So I think he's a perfect fit for Arthur Smith's run scheme. At 220 pounds, he can be an absolute monster for the Pittsburgh Steelers run game this year, and I think Rodgers is a better fit for Art's offense. And like I said, I don't think last year Art got to run the style of offense that he usually wants to run. I thought last year was a lot more shotgun, a lot less outside zone than what he usually likes to run. But the way that the Steelers have kind of built the offense this year in the offseason, I think he's going to be able to put his stamp on the team and on the offense and on the unit. So hopefully now that because he's going to be going to more of the stuff that he's more comfortable running, hopefully that's going to lead to more success for the Pittsburgh Steelers heading into the 2025 season on the offensive side of the ball. So coming up here on Steelers Talk, my biggest post-draft losers. I'm going to let you guys know the players that I think, probably are the least happy with the events of the 2025 NFL Draft. From the Steelers' perspective. But before we get into that list, let's have a word from our sponsor here at Fanatics, where if you guys are planning on getting a DK Metcalf jersey in your collection, you guys can actually help out the channel while also getting yourself a DK Metcalf jersey today when you go to chatsports.com/DK. If you use that link and you make a purchase, Fanatics sends us here at Steelers Talk part of the proceeds to help us improve our graphics, help us improve our equipment, all the stuff that makes this operation go. We really do appreciate all of your guys' support. So, hey, if you were planning on getting a number 4 DK Metcalf jersey anyway, help out the channel in the process. Go to chatsports.com/DK. Really do appreciate it. All right, so let's get to the losers here. First one up, Beanie Bishop Jr., slot cornerback last year, UDFA, that earned a roster spot and was a week 1 starter for this football team. Started many games, had a lot of big plays, a lot of interceptions for this football team last year. And, the reality is Pittsburgh brought in a lot of competition for him at the slot cornerback position this year. They brought in guys like Dante Kent from Central Michigan. They brought in Sebastian Castro, a UDFA out of Iowa that a lot of people expected to get drafted. Now, I do think, and of course, they brought in Brandon Eccles, who can play in the slot as well. But I think it is Beanie's job to lose. He has the most experience as a starter in this system. Obviously, all 3 other kind of candidates at this position are new to the team. So it's going to be Beanie's name at the top of the depth chart to start the 2025 offseason program. But there's going to be heavy competition. I did think last year Beanie's size affected his ability to effectively play in coverage. He did have some very nice instinctual plays and had a nose for the football, which gives him a leg up in this competition. But watch out for Dante Kent and Sebastian Castro. Those 2 guys are really good players in the slot, and Beanie's going to have to completely earn that starting position this offseason if he wants to be the week 1 starter for the second year in a row. Then we get to Montravius Adams, who was released by the Pittsburgh Steelers today. Steelers obviously signed drafted Derrick Harmon in round 1, then Y.A. Black in round 5, and Y.A. Black is going to be the new nose tackle, so they didn't really, I'm pretty sure they just felt like, hey, it's not really worth keeping Adams on this roster anymore. We want to give him another opportunity where he's got a better opportunity to make a team. And the Steelers also saved $2.25 million by cutting him. So the thing that I love about Montravius, man, is that he always brought the right attitude to the team. Fantastic effort player. I really appreciated everything that he did for this organization. I wish him the best of luck elsewhere. Then we get to Ryan Watts, who, not necessarily the events of the NFL draft led to the Steelers releasing him, but he and the team kind of came to a mutual understanding that Watts, the injury stuff was just not going to be feasible for him to play NFL football. So that's unfortunately for a guy like Ryan Watts. I was excited about him when the Steelers drafted him with a 6th-round pick last year. It just didn't work out, unfortunately. And we once again wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors outside of the game of football. Mike Sullivan is somebody else that the team released or took off his coach bio on their website, so it appears the team has let him go. And he's helped be quarterbacks coach, offensive assistant, whatever he wanted to call his title. The team seems to have parted ways with him. So he is certainly a post-draft loser. Then you got Mel Kiper Jr. I mean, what an absolute joke Mel Kiper Jr. is, man. Just crying on national television that his golden boy, Shadur Sanders, didn't get drafted, and then penalizing the Steelers when they didn't draft him in his final draft grades. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. Listen, I'm not going to go into details as to everything that Mel Kiper said about the Steelers because we already did a video on that. So if you want to check out my thoughts on Mel Kiper Jr. and his clown take on the Pittsburgh Steelers and their final draft grade this year, you can check out the video we put out earlier today on Steelers Talk. That'll be it for today's show, guys. But if you made it to the end, don't forget, get down there in the comments section, type those real ones if you made it to the end of the show so that you can identify yourselves and we know you made it to the end. Thank you guys so much for all of your support. Click that subscribe button if you haven't already. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.